Hey everyone, welcome to Nerd Dad Book Club. This is part one of our dive into Ernest Cline's Ready Player One. We're going to review what we've read so far, which is the prologue through chapter 3. I'll give you some of my thoughts, and then I'll also give you a discussion topic to talk with your kids if you are reading the book along with them. The first thing that I really enjoy about this story is the world, or really the post-apocalyptic world that it is set in. It's about 20 to 30 years into the future, and everything that could go wrong has gone wrong. So you have global warming, which has led to an energy crisis, which then leads to war, and that war then becomes nuclear. And while there's a lot of devastation and suffering, you still have an overpopulation problem as well. So really, everything has fallen apart in this world, and it's presented in a way that is relatable and you could see actually happening. We are a society that's overly reliant on energy. Global warming is a thing. You could see how multiple crises would cause panic, which then would lead to war. It's a scenario that is very believable. Now, this isn't the first post-apocalyptic story that we've come across, or several, but it's sometimes difficult to relate to the characters because it's hard to relate to the world that the characters are living in. The way that they got to this society is kind of you have to take a great leap of faith and use your imagination on how they got to this point. In this story, it's very relatable, and you could see how the world could come crumbling down, especially if you had leadership that didn't have the vision to get their citizens out of such turmoil. And since the world is in shambles in this story, those who live in it need a way to escape the realities of life. And they do so one of two ways. It's either through drug abuse or it's through escapist entertainment. In this story, it's the Oasis, the ultimate virtual reality, video game, social media thing that everybody is plugged into. And I really find it interesting how entertainment is addressed in this story. Now, if you're on Nerd Dads, you are doing so because you love entertainment, pop culture, nerd culture. You enjoy video games, books, comic books, movies, art in general. And you enjoy these things for possibly a multitude of different reasons. It could be because of the nostalgic feeling that it gives you, and memories of times gone by. It is the celebration of other people's creativity and seeing what others have created. It could be also a way to relieve stress and to get away from the problems in your lives. And that last part, the escapist element, hopefully is probably just a small portion of the reason why you enjoy entertainment and art. For those in this story, entertainment is something that they are vitally dependent on in order to escape the harsh realities of life. And for us, entertainment has an ever-expanding element to it, whether it's through the various reasons on why we enjoy it. For those in this story, the release from the hardships of life is very temporary, because the realities of life still exist even when they're plugged into this virtual game, and the knowledge of how bleak life is outside of it. So the game that's meant to allow them to escape reality really becomes its own prison. I also love how nostalgia is addressed in this book. Now, when Ready Player One was recommended to me by a lot of my friends, it was done so, I think, because they knew how much I enjoyed things from or art from the past, especially video games and movies and so forth. Especially the 80s, because I'm a kid from the 80s. I love the arcades and the 8-bit era video games. I love the fantasy movies of that era. There's just a lot of things I enjoy from that time period, and so I think that's why people really wanted me to check out this book. And what I find really interesting about how nostalgia is used, you see, for me and for people who grew up in that time period, the nostalgia is it gives you the warm feeling of what you might have experienced in the childhood, and it's not just the art itself, but the relation that you have to that art at that time, and the experiences that you had while you experienced that art originally. And so every time that you revisit it currently, you kind of tap back into that time period. For the majority of the characters in this book, however, the nostalgic references are not part of their lives. It's only part of their lives because the creator of the game that they're so reliant on liked them, and so he threw them into the game. For them, it's just something that exists and is a part of their day-to-day lives. And in a society that lacks any kind of creativity, that really creativity has died in this society. When things have gone wrong, one of the first things to have disappeared is the imagination. Our main protagonist finds another character very fascinating because they are able to create their own identity, that the materials that they have created are their own thoughts. It's not reliant on other people's work. And so it's really neat to see how nostalgia can be something that we can get enjoyment out of, but it can also easily be a crutch for us and not allow us to move forward. So I really find it interesting how every time something nostalgic or retro is mentioned in the book, it doesn't have that same satisfying feeling as I get when I experience it on my own. For these characters, it's kind of sad because the only things that they have are something that don't truly belong to them. Now, here's something you can talk about with your kids if you're reading the book along with them. The Oasis is the ultimate virtual reality social media video game. It reminds me of a lot of massive multiplayer online games that exist today. A few years ago, there was a video game called Second Life that was very popular. I don't think it is very much anymore. There's also World of Warcraft, and one that probably your kids are more familiar with is Minecraft. It's a game where you create your own world. You also are responsible of mundane tasks, things that would be considered chores if you did them in real life, taking care of livestock or crops, or other manual labor. It's things that we would do as jobs in the real world, but it's created or it's done in a way that's treated as entertainment. It's also a very immersive game. It's one that you can easily get lost and the time can just fly by and you don't realize how engaged you are into the game. So, like I've mentioned, the characters in Ready Player One, the Oasis, while it is escapist entertainment, it does also have that prison-like element to it where people are trapped in this being the only way that they can really experience life, because the rest of the world is so bleak around them. For us, it's not so much the case, but we still are able to become so engrossed in the entertainment, especially video games, that sometimes it's hard to escape. So what I think would be a fun thing to talk about with your kids, talk about if they do enjoy games that might be similar to Oasis, and find out what games, whether it is Minecraft or if it could be something else. One that I enjoy is Disney Infinity, another game where you create your own worlds, but you also use characters that are Disney characters in the story as well, which is very similar to the Oasis as well. And talk about how what it's like when they're playing the game, how they feel when they're playing the game, and when they log off from the game as well. And whether it's a sense of enjoyment while they're playing it, or if it has a numbing effect to their experiences as well. So that's it for part one. I would love to hear what you think about the book so far. So please leave your comments in the comment section below about what you think about the book. If your kids are reading it as well, tell me what their thoughts are in the comment section as well. Your assignment before we meet again in part 2 will be chapters 4 through 10. We might pick it up a little bit more in the weeks following because I would like to get through this book in March and also possibly tackle another book, A Wrinkle in Time, which is also being adapted into a movie and is also being released in March 2018. So hopefully we'll be able to get both books done in that time. But for now, chapters 4 through 10, and I will see you next week for part 2 of Nerd Dad Book Club.